Hey there, it's Darren, and welcome to episode 2 of my project called The Story. Today's chapter is chapter 1, and it is called The Birth. And I'm going to tell you the story of my birth. So, I want to tell you what September 24th, 1990 was like. So, I was in Bend, Oregon, and the high that day was about 71 degrees. And the low was about 54, according to records. Some of the most popular songs on the radio were Release Me by Wilson Phillips and Praying for Time by George Michael, and also Blaze of Glory by Bon Jovi. If any of you remember those, they were the #1 songs the week that I was born. And my parents were at home, and they've told me that my birth went something like this. My mother was at home. She really started feeling not well. She was she was definitely far along in her pregnancy, but she was nowhere near her expected due date. And she, I guess, turned white and was really sick and sort of collapsed, and they knew something was wrong. So they rushed her to the hospital, and she was in labor, and she was bleeding to death. It was kind of tragic. I was born 10 weeks premature. My dad's always told me that at the time, all he could think of was my mom because she was literally dying, and he wasn't even really emotionally ready for his son to be born yet. I mean, I was way early. We weren't there quite yet. All he could think about was my mom because she was legit dying, and they ended up saving her life, but it was really bad. So I've always asked, later, why were there such complications for my birth? I mean, obviously I'm here, obviously I lived, but being born 10 weeks premature, you don't typically run into people that are born that early, and I used to wonder about it as a kid. I know that I was 4 pounds, 4 ounces, not very big at all, and I've been told by a lot of family members and family friends that you could hold my little head perfectly in the palm of your hand. It was just, I was teeny, a little preemie baby. I know that I was taken to the NICU, the neonatal intensive care unit, and I was in there for just over 2 months on a respirator. And when I went home, finally, after weeks and weeks, all of my medical equipment actually went with me. So I was a very sick baby. My brother has reminded me many times that my oxygen machine specifically wouldn't shut up and kept beeping and interrupted all his Saturday morning cartoons. He would have been 4.5, 5 years old at the time. So his little brother's machines weren't making his morning that great. I also know that soon after I got home as an infant, I had to have a blood transfusion. And they actually came out to our house and did it. And I know that my grandmother held me while I had this blood transfusion because it was very traumatic for my mom. And my grandma was a former nurse, and she had the will to do it. So again, obviously and miraculously, I have grown up and grown out of all of these health issues that I was presenting with at birth. So I'm okay now, right? Well, the thing is that on most birthdays growing up, I was always told about my birth. It was a very traumatic experience for my parents, and they reminded me about it all the time. I remember this as a little kid into my teenage years. So every year on my birthday, I would be told details about how mom almost died, she almost bled to death. I was super sick. I was in the NICU for over 60 days on a respirator. My dad has told me how much it cost him for me to be born. He didn't do it in a way to make me feel bad. He just, it's his way of sort of demonstrating that and that he paid it off is the important part. He paid it off. People told him he should file bankruptcy, and he didn't. And I know that he tells me that in his own way because he's showing that he loves me and he cares for me. So by the way, quick note, you'll notice that my eyes go over here quite a bit. It's because I'm following an outline that I've typed up for my story. So if you ever wonder why I'm doing that, that's where my eyes are going. Anyway, let's fast forward to college. So I'm sitting in college, my senior year, in an anatomy and physiology class that was specific for speech-language pathology students. Everything from the chest up is kind of what we focused on. So I'm sitting in this class, and in this particular lecture, we were discussing congenital birth disorders, which means disorders that present at birth or are present at birth, and specifically for communication disorders, how they show up and what the side effects and symptoms end up being for these kiddos. So we were talking about things like fetal alcohol syndrome, babies that are born addicted to substances, things like that. And my professor was using this word over and over. It was a word called surfactant. And I just kept remembering back to stories of my birth that had that word associated with it, surfactant. I remembered being told that as a baby, I was deficient in surfactant. So I started researching. And by the way, when I would ask as a kid, why was I born so early? Why was I so sick? They would tell me that it was a spider bite. And so as a little kid, I never questioned that. Mom was bit by a spider, and I was born really early and I was really sick. Why would you question that? So started researching this thing because I got really curious. I'd never heard the word surfactant before, and it just piqued my curiosity. I can't describe it. I couldn't stop thinking about it. So started researching. And while I don't know with certainty why I was born 10 weeks early, after a lot of research and discussion and conversation, I've discovered that typical causes for premature births are the mother having diabetes, heart disease, kidney disease, maybe high blood pressure. I don't know that my mother had any of those when she gave birth to me. That tells me that it must have been pregnancy related, which could be poor nutrition, smoking, using illegal drugs, alcohol intake, too much of it, having certain infections such as like a UTI even, or something with the amniotic membrane during birth, an abnormal fetus even. So there was all these reasons, right? So whatever the cause, I'm not sure to this day what it was, not even sure that it matters. I'll get to that in a bit, but I know that I was really sick. But upon further discovery, here's what I also learned. So I was deficient in this thing called pulmonary surfactant, and it's this fascinating sort of unique jelly substance that lines your lungs and the outside of your lungs, and it helps them move and keeps them sort of fluid, and it has that sort of balance that your lungs, they need to expand and contract all the time, and without it, your lungs aren't able to do that, and you can't really breathe. So you either have a deficiency in pulmonary surfactant when you're born because it's a genetic mutation, that's the first reason, or because it could be developed during the actual birth. I could have gotten neonatal infection, and there's a whole long list of infections that are related to that. So that kind of describes that. I know that I was immediately placed on a respirator, and then I stayed on it over 60 days because of that underdeveloped pulmonary surfactant, but also because I had both apnea and bradycardia. So that means that I would stop breathing as a baby and that my heart rate was way super low. So the only choice was to put me on this breathing machine. And when I got home, I most likely required a blood transfusion because of the apnea and the bradycardia and my super oxygen deficient blood. So on top of all that, I've been told that I was tested at birth for, all the things they test babies for, and that I had either failed or not done well on the majority of the tests. And overall, I know that it was bleak. It was rough. It was not a pleasant welcome to the world experience for me. I'm thankful I don't remember, but not for me, not for my family, no one. It was a lot of things. So what does all of it mean? Does it mean anything? Does it have to mean anything? Well, I know this. During my childhood, whenever I would be told about my birth on my birthday, and it happened almost every year, I just used to always wonder about it, and as a little kid, I was very inquisitive, and I used to think, well, why? Why did I survive? Why did I get better? These were questions that I had all the time, and from the beginning, I felt like there was a lot expected of me. My parents would say, you are just such a miracle baby. You've been given so many gifts, and we never thought that we were told you'd never really make it. You were so incredibly sick. You're such a miracle. And while that sounds fabulous, and I don't blame them whatsoever, what I actually ended up doing, looking back, is really thinking about that old saying, to whom much is given, much is expected. And, because it was told to me every single year, it's almost like every year that I got older, it was just more impactful to me, that saying. I've got a lot expected of me. And I also know, looking back, that that's really where the start of a lot of anxiety I struggle with today began. I just needed to please. I needed to do a lot. A lot was expected of me. So, as a kid, I knew this from my parents because they told me, but we were also raised very religious. God was definitely a part of our household. So I was told this from the viewpoint of God as well, if that makes any sense. God expected a lot of me. I had been delivered through this tragic situation, and I was saved. He gave me life. That meant that I should be eternally grateful, and that I should both intentionally and exhaustingly seek His will to show my gratitude and rise up to His expectations for my life, right? So obviously I can't speak to the specifics or the details of my birth because I wasn't there. But I can say that from the beginning, there's been this idea planted in my head that if I could survive that, I could get through just about anything, right? And so far, even though it's been challenging beyond word at times, this life, that has been the case. I've made it through. Whatever life has thrown at me, somehow I have just kept going. So regardless of the many questions that I have surrounding my birth and my irritation for realizing that I'm probably never going to have the answers, I do know that overall I'm very thankful for it. Looking back, I can say that learning as a kid that I had this ability to make it through, to power through difficulties and challenges in my life is perhaps one of the greatest things I'm grateful for. I really am. I'm super grateful that that was instilled in me as a kid. Because, oh my God, have there been a lot of challenges that I have powered through. And there are going to be a lot more. I'm completely aware of that. So that kind of leaves something, though. And that's this anger. When I was in that college class and I learned that there's a possibility, I started learning of the possibilities of my premature birth and why it happened. I got angry. I really did. I fully admit that there was a period of time where I was just downright mad. I was downright mad at my parents, my mother specifically, all of the possibilities I was creating in my head, because no one was technically telling me this. And I had just decided I'm mad. I'm mad about this. How could they do this? How could this happen? How could you not treat the baby in you with respect and excitement and joy and love and not do anything and everything to take complete and total care of it? These were the things that just were in my mind all the time, and I really sort of began punishing my parents for it, especially my mother. I was mad. It wasn't something that I really wanted to talk about. I was just mad. If my mother didn't have diabetes or kidney disease or heart disease, then either my prematurity was a crazy fluke event, or it meant that harmful substances or behaviors had something to do with her pregnancy with me. And I was mad about it. regardless, I want to move on with things in my life. I've always been like that, right? Keep digging. I had to really get clear on two things surrounding my birth. And that was not just the details and things like that, because I'd kind of become comfortable with the fact that I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to go. No, I don't have the privilege of just talking to my parents about it today. And you'll learn more about that in my story. But I don't know. But I knew that I had this anger surrounding it that really stemmed from learning about what possibly could have happened in college. And I didn't want it. So to get really clear, I focused on two things, really. One is this. We only get so much energy every day in our lives. And you have to wonder, is being angry or upset over something that I have zero control, literally no control over, is that worth even a single ounce of that energy that could be spent elsewhere? And I decided, no, it never is. And I really dug down in that. And, being angry comes at a cost every time, meaning that it's costing you by taking away the opportunity to direct that energy to something, somebody, whatever it is, that is much healthier and much better and more beneficial for your life. We can't waste it. We can't waste that energy. And it's silly to waste it on being angry. The second thing that I had to really get clear on is this. Does it really matter? Is my anger really even founded? Is it grounded? Did I make it up? Am I being mad at my mom for nothing? I don't know that she didn't have diabetes or whatever to cause this premature birth and make me so sick and make me feel as a little boy that I had all this expectation to live up to. What on earth does it have to do with today? What does it really matter with who I am today and who I have become? The only reason that it matters is because I finally stopped letting it have power over me. And I extrapolated all of the positives, any and all positives that came from it, and I decided that the rest didn't need to matter anymore. I made that decision. It took a long time, but I did. And something else I discovered about myself is something that I wasn't super proud of. And I'm not super proud of, which is why I'm doing this now. And I'm able to admit it. I learned that really the only reason I was holding on to that anger was so that I could bask in love and acceptance and attention that I'd receive whenever I shared it with somebody. I would say, my mom did this and during her birth with her pregnancy with me, and then I was born this super sick baby and, whatever, and they'd all feel bad, and I would just bask in it. I wanted that love, I wanted that attention, and I wanted that acceptance. And it's hard to admit that, but that's the truth. I loved nothing more than making myself the victim. Whenever I expressed anger towards this, I intentionally made myself the victim and got the love from other people because they felt sorry for me. I wanted that. I needed it. So it kind of leaves this question. Is it reasonable to think that I was a victim? Maybe. The definition, I'll read it just verbatim. The definition of a victim is being somebody who was just harmed or killed, hurt, harmed, or killed as the result of a crime, accident, or other situation. Okay, maybe. But you know what? I don't want to be a victim. I'm not a victim. I don't want to be known as a victim. I want to be a champion. I want to be known as a champion. And today I know that I am a champion, which means that I have defeated that crime, accident, or other situation that once held power over me. And I can be a champion any time I want. Anytime. Not just regarding this situation. I can be a champion whenever I want. And it really begs the question, okay, so which label do you want? I had to ask myself that. And I had to go through the work to figure out that I was using the label of victim. And it really wasn't getting me very far. I didn't like it. And I was still clinging on to this anger, which was stealing my energy and taking power away from my life and my ability to move on and do good and be good in the world. So which label do you want? Bad things happen. I mean, look, tragic, unfortunate events, sad circumstances happen every day to a lot of us. And do you know when they're going to stop happening? When you're dead. When we're dead. You try and name one person who has gotten to the end of their life and didn't experience some sort of struggle, tough experience, or difficulty right up until they left this earth. I mean, I challenge you to name one person. I can't. I can't. Struggle it keeps coming. But we get to choose who we want to be. It's amazing. And the craziest part is that we're only one decision away from deciding who it is we want to be and the label that we place on ourselves. You know, you can either choose to be the victim or the champion, the loser or the winner, the weak or the strong. I mean, you get it. You can just go through the whole list. The thing is that it all starts with you. No one else. It started with me. Am I there yet? Have I arrived? Am I truly like a fully gilded champion that's ready to take on the world? Well, maybe in my mind, but I know that I'm going to be knocked down and have to go through this again. But the point is, I stopped letting the crime, accident, or other situation that I used to catastrophize and let have me as a victim, I let it stop stealing my power. And anyone can do that. This isn't some innate gift that I have. It's what I did. So truthfully, I'm very thankful for my birth. I'm thankful that on September 24th, 1990, I was brought into this world and that I'm still here today to keep experiencing the beauty, the mystery, and the love that this life continues to show me every single day. And all I have to do is keep paying attention to it. So that is my story about my birth and chapter 1 of my book called The Story. Thank you so much for watching, for listening, and I ended up releasing this today because I was really fired up about telling you about my birth. I'll probably drop the next 29 episodes on Wednesdays, like I said I would, but you guys have inspired and encouraged me so much already that I just wanted to do this. So thank you so much again, and I hope that this video finds you well, and I'm recording it on a Friday, so the weekend is coming up. I hope that you have a fabulous weekend, and I'll look forward to bringing you chapter 2 called The Childhood next Wednesday. Thank you. Take care.